Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of Mary Trump Live. Happy Friday. Oh, wait, sorry. It's Monday. Yes, time's already starting to do that thing, isn't it? Yep, it is Monday and it is going to be a busy week. It already is, but starting tomorrow, we have all of the confirmation hearings. And that is going to be fascinating. We'll talk about that briefly later on, but we will be covering it all week long. But today, earlier this afternoon, President Biden gave his final foreign policy speech. Um, and here is what he had to say about climate change.
Clean energy transition will race ahead in years to come. I know some incoming administration, some in the incoming administration, are skeptical about the need for clean energy. They don't even believe climate change is real. I think they come from a different century. They're wrong. They are dead wrong. It's the single greatest existential threat to humanity.
President Biden also had a lot to say about his foreign policy record, including our withdrawal from Afghanistan, among other things. Here is a brief compilation of his remarks earlier today.
Keep spending hundreds of millions of dollars a day. We're no longer doing that. In my view, it was time to end the war and bring our troops home, and we did. I commend the courage of all those who served in Afghanistan. We grieve all 2,461 Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice in the longest war in American history. And I grieve those brave service members whose lives were lost during the withdrawal. We also thank those inside and outside of government who have done so much to help thousands of Afghan families resettle in the United States. Remember, critics said if we entered the war, it would damage our alliances and create threats to our homeland from foreign directed terrorism out of a safe haven in Afghanistan. Neither has occurred. Ending the war was the right thing to do, and I believe history will reflect that. My administration is leaving the next administration with a very strong hand to play, and we're leaving them in America with more friends and stronger alliances, whose adversaries are weaker and under pressure. An America that once again is leading, uniting countries, setting the agenda, bringing others together behind our plans and visions. An America which is no longer at war, which has made historic investments in American workers, American energies, American factories, generating the strongest economy in the world, which is now in a much better position to win the future against any competitor.
Well, we're going to see how long all of that lasts. Yes, it must be said that President Biden's record in both foreign policy and economic policy was among the best in modern American history. We can indeed take issue, perhaps, with the way the Afghanistan withdrawal was handled. But, one question that people don't seem ever to ask when they're in a position to attack President Biden is, how much longer were we going to stay in Afghanistan, continue to lose blood and treasure? Nobody seems to ever answer that question in any way that's satisfying. So we're going to talk about the economy in a little bit, but I just wish the corporate media had characterized President Biden's successes to a degree that actually did them justice. Before we dive in to see what's going on, what's been going on the rest of today, please take a second to like and share this video, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And once you do, just click the bell and you'll be alerted whenever new videos drop. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please take a second to follow us and give us a 5-star review because it really does help other people find the shows. Okay, so President Biden is leaving an incredibly strong economy in Donald's hands, which is actually a pretty terrifying thought, because Donald is, one, going to take credit for it, and two, probably turn around and destroy it. So, Donald is constantly touting how strong he is on the economy and how good he is for the stock market. But since the election, experts have begun to weigh in on Donald's proposed economic policies, and they're really in favor of them. Their determination is that Donald's proposed policies, such as import tariffs, which is, again, a tax on goods imported from other countries on the American people, his strict immigration rules, all of that will risk slowing economic growth by increasing costs, reducing the labor force, and fueling inflation. Concerns are also mounting that the Federal Reserve may tighten monetary policy more aggressively as bond yields surge amid fears of rising inflation and public debt. The stock markets have reacted negatively, with post election gains nearly erased, reflecting uncertainty about the tariffs and, again, impact on economic growth. Economists also warn that deficit funded tax cuts, and these, again, tax cuts for the ultra wealthy and corporations, coupled with aggressive deregulation, could undermine long-term stability by inflating the national debt and creating environmental and financial risks. The uncertainty surrounding these policies raises significant doubts about their ability to sustain economic momentum. And I think it's important to remember how bad the economy was during the first Trump administration. And it wasn't just because of COVID. The Trump administration was losing manufacturing jobs before COVID even hit. And because of those $1 trillion tax cuts, 25% of the national debt incurred in the last 250 years was incurred during the 4 years of the Trump administration. Tariffs are going to fuel all of the things Donald has pretended he's going to fight against: high inflation and higher prices. We already know that he was lying about bringing prices down because he said pretty much in the last couple of weeks that it's much harder than he thought it would be. All right, let's turn our attention to the ongoing apocalypse out in Los Angeles County. As we heard during Biden's remarks earlier today, he called Donald out on his failure to acknowledge the seriousness of the worsening problems of climate change. And I just want to put in context how this conversation is playing out. All right, let's just look at where we are right now with how things are out in LA County. The death toll as of today has risen to 24. The Palisades fire, which is absolutely the worst of them, has itself accounted for 11 fatalities. Authorities expect the death toll will rise as search efforts continue. Approximately 150,000 residents are still under evacuation orders, with over 700 people seeking refuge in shelters. The fires have consumed, I'm not sure if you can wrap your head around this number, 62 square miles, which is larger than the area of San Francisco. Containment in not all of them, but containment in most of the fires remains low. And the firefighting effort, and this is important to keep in mind when we talk about the reactions on the right to how we're going to handle this situation going forward. Firefighting efforts involve over 14,000 personnel, including crews from California, 9 other states, as well as Mexico and Canada. President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine has a fire crew ready to go in order to assist if necessary, which is more than Donald Trump or Elon Musk have done. And Zelensky is in the middle of fighting a war that Donald is poised to make worse. All right, so with all of that in mind, I want to talk about how Republicans are positioning themselves vis-a-vis this crisis. Here's what Speaker of the House Mike Johnson had to say.
Are you open to providing aid to California without any conditions at all?
I think we've got to have a serious conversation about that. Obviously, there's been water resources management, forest management mistakes, all sorts of problems. And it does come down to leadership, and it appears to us that state and local leaders were derelict in their duty in many respects. So that's something that has to be factored in. I think there should probably be conditions on that, Aid. That's my personal view. We'll see what the consensus is. I haven't had a chance to socialize that with any of the members over the weekend because we've all been very busy, but it'll be part of the discussion for sure.
What about the debt limit increase? What about tying the debt limit increase to it?
There's some discussion about that, but we'll see where it goes.
It appears to him, does it? All right, that's Mike Johnson, holier than thou, Mike Johnson, telling us that he either doesn't know anything or he's lying. I'm going to go with the latter because for a Christian, he's a quite eloquent liar. There are no circumstances under which aid to disaster areas or disaster victims should be conditioned upon anything. This is not just cruelty, it's hypocrisy in a way that only Republicans seem to be hypocritical. I just want to remind everybody of the situation down in Texas. Texas has separated its electrical grid from the national grid. And it appears that every summer, there are widespread power outages, leaving people without air conditioning. And every winter, there are widespread power outages, leaving people without heat. In fact, in 2021, during a freak winter storm, over 700 people died. And I don't remember anybody saying that the Republican governor was inept or incompetent. I don't remember anybody saying on the Republican side that aid should be withheld until Greg Abbott learned how to do his job. I don't remember any conditions being placed upon aid at all. So just jumping on the bandwagon, here is what Fox had to say.
The question now is whether Americans in other states should be paying the bill for their policy, which really ignored the fundamental prevention efforts.
Especially if those policies aren't going to change.
Right.
Right.
Are you going to come on TV and say that California was well prepared and couldn't have done anything better, and this fire, no one could have put it out? Are you really going to tell people watching right now in California, the Democrats, the liberals, all the Hollywood stars that are livid at Bass and Newsom, that everything was perfect and they got this thing right? Jessica, this is such a disaster.
Will probably be recalled, but I am going to come on and read what the head of FEMA had to say, or the LA County fire chief.
Okay.
You know better than that?
I know.
All right, this is not about policy decisions, okay? You don't withhold aid to disaster victims because of bad policy decisions. And I'm not saying that there were, but just for the sake of argument. What, so you're going to let people remain homeless and starve and be without water because you need to punish elected officials for making mistakes? Or you think that because by giving aid to people in the most extreme crises, that somehow that's going to let failed policies continue? And again, that's assuming they are failed policies. What I would say is this also. I cannot think of any policy or any public official or any firefighter who could put out a fire when there are sustained winds of 60 miles an hour with 80 to 100 mile an hour gusts. Seriously? You think that dropping water out of a plane is going to solve that problem? You think that that's because of failed policy or politicians not making the right decisions? It's absolutely absurd, but it's more than anything else cruel, because once again, these miscreants on the right are using a crisis to divide us against each other, to change the subject and muddy the waters and make sure that the people most in need don't get any help. Of course, Donald had more disinformation to spread on his failing social media company, and one of his posts read, quote, "The incompetent Pauls have no idea how to put them out. Thousands of magnificent houses are gone, and many more will soon be lost. There is death all over the place. This is one of the worst catastrophes in the history of our country. They just can't put out the fires. What's wrong with them?" Unquote. I have one more thing that I forgot to mention. I think it was Janine Pirro who said, "So what are we supposed to do? The rest of the country is supposed to help California out because of its failed policy decisions." Yes, And again, that's whether or not the policy decisions were good, bad, or indifferent. That's what we do. We are allegedly the United States of America. One of our states goes through a massive crisis like this. The rest of us are supposed to help out. No questions asked. Just ask Texas, just ask Florida, just ask any of the other very, very red states that have been suffering inordinately from natural disasters fueled by the climate crisis that Republicans continue to pretend does not exist. All right, moving on. I have to confess, I find this one a little mystifying. Federal judge, also known as Donald's personal pocket judge, the corrupt alien cannon, ruled on Monday that the Justice Department may release a portion of Jack Smith's report on Donald's efforts to overturn the 2020 election as early as midnight, which would bar further legal action from Donald's team. Cannon, however, continued to block the DOJ from releasing the portion of the report on the classified documents case, citing concerns about the ongoing legal proceedings against the co-defendants, Walt Nada and Carlos de Oliveira. Cannon ordered a hearing on Friday to determine whether the classified documents report can be shared with members of Congress, expressing concerns that such a release could impact the co-defendants' right to a fair trial. The DOJ continues to appeal Cannon's original ruling blocking the report's release, arguing that she lacks jurisdiction, while Donald's legal team claims the report is one-sided and unlawful attack. Yeah, shocking. I want to talk about the jurisdiction issue. Cannon did preside over the documents case in Florida. She dismissed the case against Donald. There is an appeal going on right now, and her claims of jurisdiction in that case are tenuous at best. But then let's talk about the January 6th report. She had absolutely no authority to interfere with the release of that report on January 6th, because that's a case with which she had absolutely no involvement. The fact that Merrick Garland even gave her demands consideration is yet another embarrassment that the alleged attorney general can chalk up. Garland does intend to release the election-related section of the report. That would be the January 6th portion of the report publicly, and the classified documents section will go privately to congressional leaders, but the clock is ticking. So unless there's a congressional leader who's a Democrat who is willing, for the sake of history and the sake of justice, to release significant portions of their report, it will never be released, because Donald's DOJ, possibly head by Pam Bondi, who is also corrupt and in the pocket of her soon-to-be boss, will never allow that report to see the light of day. With these rulings, Donald lost what little is left of his mind. And at 12:14, he wrote, quote, "Deranged Jack Smith was fired today by the DOJ." Okay, he resigned. All right. He's a disgrace to himself, his family, and his country. After spending over $100 million on the witch hunt against Trump, he left town empty-handed, unquote. $100 million, that is a wildly inaccurate number. I don't even know how. He just is very fond. He's like constantly suing people for $100 million. I don't know where he comes up with that. And again, Smith resigned because he would have been fired by Donald's DOJ on January 20th at 12:01 p.m. Just 16 minutes later, 2 hours and 16 minutes later, Donald wrote, quote, "Why would deranged Jack Smith be allowed to issue a report on a complete and total witch hunt against me? To put it nicely, he was illegitimately involved in this political persecution, and all of the hundreds of millions of dollars spent by our hapless government were simply wasted." Oh, wow. Now it's hundreds of millions of dollars. This is getting expensive. I think we could balance the budget simply by no longer trying Donald Trump. Oh, which, by the way, we're not going to be doing anymore. Finally, he wrote this, quote, "They were sent packing after spending over $100 million, destroying the lives of many people and families who will never be the same again. Deranged Jack accomplished nothing except to show what complete losers my political opponents are. Exclamation points," unquote. I don't know what families were destroyed by this. that's kind of a mystery to me, since in the January 6th case, Donald was the only defendant. And I'm pretty sure he's going to pardon the two people down in Mar-a-Lago, who, by the way, were on trial for helping Donald commit crimes. So if their lives are ruined, and considering he's paying their legal fees, et cetera, I would say that it's their fault. Do you remember JD Vance? Remember him? Yeah. He is, I think, he's going to be the new coffee boy in the Oval Office. Oh wait, no, sorry, that's somebody else entirely. I think Vance is going to be in charge of bringing the Diet Cokes, but he's also going to be vice president of the United States. Well, he's back. He has decided that he wasn't getting any attention, so he came out with a statement saying that people who committed violence at the Capitol riot, quote unquote, obviously should not be pardoned. Wow, I would think that would be news to Donald, but I want to think about that for a second. Anyway, this weekend on January 11th, Vance clarified Donald's stance on pardoning individuals in the January 6, 2021 Capitol attack. According to the New York Post, Vance stated that Donald's plans to pardon individuals who, quote, protested peacefully, unquote, during the Capitol incident. And he emphasized the need for equal administration of the law and indicated that each case would be individually reviewed, emphasizing that those who engage in violent actions are excluded from pardon consideration. The Post stated that Vance addressed the backlash from some accusing him of walking back promises to pardon those who were in the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, and he clarified that the administration would review each case individually to ensure justice. All right. Nobody who was at the Capitol or in the Capitol that day was protesting peacefully. Or let's say there were some people protesting peacefully. None of those people was arrested, indicted, charged, sentenced, and imprisoned. So I'm not even sure what he's talking about there. As for the people who have been imprisoned for committing violent crimes against Capitol police officers and DC Metro police officers, as well as crimes like seditious conspiracy, which Enrico Tarrio and Stuart Rhodes, among others, have been sentenced to, and those are sentences of 18 or more years. I think a lot of people who are still sitting in prison actually believe that Donald had a plan to pardon every single person involved in the insurrection without any caveats. I think, though, that he won't do that, and here's why. Because he always has this out. He can always say, I had nothing to do with it. They got the instigators. It's just a theory. Also, I mean, I don't know if anybody can convince Donald otherwise, but it would just be a self-inflicted wound to pardon people like Enrico Tarrio and Stuart Rhodes. And maybe Vance, by trying to make himself relevant again, is trying to head that off. I'm not really sure, but allegedly this is supposed to happen on day one. So day one is going to be very busy. I think we're just going to have to be going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm just kidding, because we kind of need to sleep and stuff, but it's going to be a busy couple of weeks. And we will definitely be keeping you posted about all of the content. But before we go, I did want to look at some of your comments here from Tina. I never believed he would pardon them. Interesting. Yeah, it's very possible that was just another empty campaign promise, throwing red meat to the base. And the only way he does is if he gets something out of it, whether it's pay for play or what have you. I don't know. But I don't think you're wrong. I don't have a really good sense of it, but we'll find out pretty soon. Because he said on day one, right? And we could always take him at his word. Okay, from Anna-Ree. Hey, couldn't Judge Mershon sentence Donald with no golf for 4 years? No, we want him to play golf as much as possible, please. Just keep him on the golf course. But yeah, I think that there's a reason that there was no fine or no even symbolic sentence, because this had to be ended with an unconditional not surrender. I forget what the term is, but it essentially had to be no punishment whatsoever so that there were no issues down the road. I know it's disgraceful, but I continue to wish that Justice Merchan had told us what the sentence would have been under different circumstances. That would have been nice. From Gail, California should withhold their taxes, which they pay to our government. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Guys, remember, not only is California the 5th largest economy on the planet, but like many other blue states like New York and Illinois, etc., we pay much more in taxes than we get back from the federal government. Red states are the charity cases. Red states take much more in federal aid than they give back in taxes. So why, after all of this, federal aid being conditioned upon interfering in local and state politics and policies, how dare they? I don't know if it's possible, but yeah, California should definitely draw the line in the sand, because it is absolutely obscene what these Republicans continue to try to get away with. From Hope 216, Vance is Donald's food taster. Any MAGA uproar will be blamed on Vance. Good luck with it. I can't think of a more deserving non-person than Vance to be blamed for everything. But yeah, it is not at all clear to me what role Vance is going to play. Again, I think he's just a figurehead, and the people who back him and boost him and support him, like Peter Thiel and David Sachs, will be pulling the strings. Yep, those oligarch tech dude bros are really, all of them seem to be from South Africa. They are not on the side of American democracy by any stretch of the imagination. From Drunken Saint, I'm still on the side of democracy, but are the Democrats? I don't see how they could certify. Yeah, listen, I'm with you. I don't understand. I just don't understand what the Democrats, how easily the Democrats squandered the transition. It's a mystery to me, and it suggests to me, we'll have to see what happens in the hearings and in the next 100 days. But we are going to have to see if there are any Democrats who are actually willing to fight, because I haven't seen it, and it's alarming. And apparently some Democrats think what we needed was another Kirsten Sinema or Joe Manchin, because Fetterman has decided that the best way to get along, to go along, is to get along, or get along is to go along, because he is taking his obsequious self down to Mar-a-Lago, which I think that's volunteering to have your hands tied behind your back. But Fetterman's gonna Fetterman. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of tonight's broadcast. It has been a pleasure to be with you. I just want to remind you that the nerds are live tomorrow at 12 noon, and Thursday also at 12 noon. And Mary Trump Live will be back on Wednesday at 6 p.m. I am traveling on Friday, so we'll keep you posted about what the schedule is going to be. And again, we are in the end days of the Biden administration, so we have a lot planned here to keep everybody up to date and sane to the extent that that's possible, grounded at any rate. We have a week until the inauguration and lots of programming, so we'll keep you posted on all of it. And breathe. I'm basically talking to myself, but yes, all of you should breathe too. If you're out in LA, please stay safe. I know it's horrific, but just take care of yourselves. Okay. Wear masks, because I hear the smoke is spreading. All right, that does it for us. Thanks so much to our awesome moderators. Thank you to everybody who donated our super stickers. You guys rock. Thank you, Mercedes, for keeping the show going. Thank you, Sally. And again, we'll be back with the nerds tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe. Be kind. I'll see you soon.